Welcome to the Herd's official YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the Colin Cowherd podcast, all of our NFL instant reactions, and more football content.
Well, what a wild, wild conclusion. I mean, at least now we have a college football playoff at 12 teams. We didn't like when the computers did it. We didn't like when the media selected it. We don't like the rando, arbitrary committee doing it. But at least the playoff will be great when we figure out who's in and who's out. Right now, Notre Dame's in. Miami and Texas are out. Does head-to-head matter? I mean, Oklahoma got thumped by Texas. A&M got thumped by Texas. Vandy got thumped by Texas. Texas was willing to play Ohio State and Columbus. Lost close. They didn't get in. And, I mean, Texas plays in the SEC where, you know, I always hear about bad losses. Miami lost to SMU. SMU beat Clemson in Miami. They're not that bad. They're 8-4, and they went to the playoff last year. The game was in Dallas. They're not that bad. So the Louisville loss stunk. And for Texas, I guess the Florida loss is bad. But, man, Texas had a lot of quality wins. I'm somebody that I look at your schedule and give me quality wins. I don't think bad losses should be the be-all, end-all. The Rams just lost to the Panthers. I just think we've asked college kids now to play more and more and more and more games. You're going to have a stinker. Rams defense last week stunk, and we know they're great. In Miami, you know, Texas went and played an SEC team in Gainesville and got beat. Remember last year, Lane Kiffin took a good team to Gainesville and lost. Losing at Gainesville, to me, it's an SEC team. It's 90,000 people. It's the loudest stadium collegiately I've ever been to. With that, Joel Klatt, who called Ohio State, Michigan, he'll be calling Ohio State, Indiana. He's getting some good games. So I guess this is, we both love this sport. I guess where I feel bad. So Miami's going, we beat them head to head.
Yeah.
And Texas is going, we beat 3 top 10 teams. And the committee's like, well, Notre Dame didn't really have a quality win, but they had no bad losses. I don't know if that's how we should measure greatness. I like Notre Dame as a program. Doesn't Miami have a real case here?
Of course. Of course, Miami has a real case, and Texas has a real case. And there's so many ways to go. Let me just start with, like, the problem is obviously the format.
Right.
Obviously, right? Because we're trying to have this selection-based playoff, and it doesn't matter if you have computers do it or people do it. Like, it's subjective. And there's no way that you can rank the criteria, or at least they don't rank the criteria and tell us which one is going to take precedent over the other.
Right.
So there's all different types of criteria. You can take a head-to-head criteria or a resume criteria, the eye test criteria. Did you get to a conference championship game? What did your schedule look like, in particular in the non-conference? And yet we don't rank those. So what value does any of those criteria actually have towards the ranking? Well, we don't know. And I think that's the arbitrary nature of it is what's frustrating. I've argued for a long time that we need to define the path. You see, like, for instance, in every other sport, always and forever, what do we do to break tiebreakers, Colin?
Head-to-head.
The first one is head-to-head.
Yeah.
Always. Always. And so here's the thing with Notre Dame. I don't think they're just in. I know that they're not going to play another game, and Miami is not going to play another game, but they have this buffer that is BYU. And so if you actually play this out, I think Notre Dame is actually more likely to miss the playoff than make the playoff. And here's why. If BYU wins in the Big 12 championship game and beats Texas Tech, they get an automatic spot, and there's almost no scenario where Tech falls behind Notre Dame. Therefore, Notre Dame would fall out. Now, if BYU loses to Texas Tech, maybe similar fashion to the way they lost already this year when they played Tech 29-7, it was a dominant victory for the Red Raiders. Wouldn't BYU almost assuredly just fall maybe 1 spot or 2 spots in the rankings behind Miami, which then would promote a direct comparison with what we're talking about? Two teams right next to each other, same record with a head-to-head result. So I think Notre Dame's actually in a really precarious spot right now.
Yeah, Listen, you know me. I like big brands. I want Notre Dame and Miami and Texas all in. Right? Like that's what I'm rooting for.
I think Texas is cooked. I don't see a way they get in.
I know, but it's unbelievable. Beat Oklahoma like a drum. Dominated Vandy. Dominated, and they lose to Ohio State by 7. From that point forward, Ohio State won by an average of 31. They're the only team that played a super close game in Columbus, 4 new offensive linemen, and you're like, best college defense probably either one of us has seen in half a decade, and they lose by a touchdown, and Texas didn't play well, and you're like, I don't know. Like, listen, they don't match up with Georgia. They just don't. That happens. They don't match up with Georgia. Let me ask you this. Indiana scheduled a week out of conference schedule. Right now, they'd have a bye. What if Indiana gets smoked? What if it is 38-17, and it looks like the Indiana-Notre Dame game last year? What if Indiana gets smoked? What happens to them?
I don't think they fall out of bye territory, and the reason is that Oregon will act as a buffer. Remember, they beat Oregon. Yes. So, like, Oregon is their floor. Okay. So even if they fall down with what they've done this year, they're probably still going to remain in the top 4, or even if they were to get. Now, I don't think they'll get smoked. I think that's a very good and complete team. Now, did they play a soft non-conference? There's no doubt that they played a soft non-conference. But I don't see a situation where either the loser of the Big Ten championship game, Ohio State or Indiana, falls out of a position where they're getting a bye in the first round of the college football playoff.
Okay, what if Bama went to Georgia? It was honestly, one of the most perfect game plans I've ever seen. They beat Georgia in Athens. They were flawless. It was one of the best halves of football played by anybody this year. What if Georgia beats them? And by the way, Georgia and Kirby Smart don't beat Alabama much. Like that you talk about a matchup. Georgia doesn't beat Bama. Texas doesn't beat Georgia. What if Bama gets smacked? Can they get knocked out?
I think possibly, although the history and the precedent from the committee last year was that they weren't going to penalize teams for losing conference championship games. And we saw that when SMU lost to Clemson. You remember, and Clemson got the automatic berth, but then SMU stayed in the college football playoff. They went to Penn State and lost in the first round. So precedent would tell you that this committee is going to value conference championship games and not knock a team for losing that. Now, let me just say this, sake of argument. Let's just pull ourselves out 30,000-foot view for a moment, because that would suggest that this committee is trying to protect or value conference championship games. And I would make the argument that in college football for the last 10 and 20 years, we have done a really poor job of trying to protect and value things that are obviously going to die, like amateurism and bowl games, for example. These are things that obviously don't fit in what's going to happen in the future of our sport. And the fact that they didn't move off of amateurism early led to the chaos that we have now with the transfer portal and the revenue share. The fact that they won't move off of bowl games gives us a regular season and then playoff that leaks into the NFL playoffs, that leaks into the transfer portal late into January. So we're not nimble in college football. And if you protect the conference championship game, the writing is on the wall, Colin. These games are being devalued. There's no reason to protect those. So if Bama were to get smacked, I could see a situation where, depending on what happens in the BYU Texas Tech game, they get in, maybe Miami gets in, and maybe, they take another look at Texas in that regard. But I do think that we need to start putting the right value in the right spots. I think that we need to start talking about defining the path to the playoff rather than having a selection-based committee playoff. These things would be better for the sport. Not to get too long-winded, but just for an example, imagine this weekend if we had a play-in weekend, and this didn't live in a committee room, but it lived on the field, where we had, based on where you finished in your conference, automatic bursts per conference, maybe 4 each for the big guys, SEC and Big Ten, maybe 2 each for the ACC and the Big 12. And then you would get matchups this weekend, Colin, like Texas at Texas A&M, winner goes to the playoff. BYU, Utah, winner goes to the playoff. Miami, Duke, winner goes to the playoff. So we would be able to say, hey, listen, rather than just sitting there and watching your TV and seeing if a committee puts you in, you control your own fate. Go play a football game for 60 minutes, and if you can win that game, then you're going to go on into a 14-team playoff. That's what I would do. But no one's making me commissioner yet. If you've got that power, please do so.
If I was commissioner, I would say head-to-head 1, quality wins 2. That to me clarity would be pretty easy. I mean, Texas would be in, Notre Dame would not be. Like, head-to-head matters, quality win, because I want better scheduling.
I would take it away from at large. I don't like this idea that we're just like selecting teams. Now, even if you define the criteria and valued them, as you're saying, in a particular order, that would help. That would certainly help. I would just rather put it on the field. I would rather have a play-in weekend. A play-in weekend with 14 teams would create more value at the top because there would only be 2 buys. So you're really creating a top-end incentive for those teams to play hard late into the season, the best teams in the country, and more access and control at the bottom. That's what I would do.
Okay, I got 3 things I'm going to get to. Penn State, Lane Kiffin. Before I do that, I could see Ryan Day wants to win every game, but the conference championship for like Ohio State means nothing. I don't want guys hurt. My takeaway is, and I also am going to have to play somebody. I don't want them seeing, I want them to have to go back 8 games to find some of my tricks. I could see Ohio State saying, any player that's kind of banged up, you're not playing, and kind of doing a vanilla playbook, and then they lose because the bottom line is if I beat Michigan and win a natty, nobody gives a rip about Indiana. You beat Michigan, you win a natty. So I guess my question is it possible we're going to get a really flat, uninspired Buckeye team this weekend?
I don't think so because they've been business-like the entire year. It didn't matter if we saw them at, I saw them play Rutgers, I saw them play Illinois, and they were the same every single week. And I feel like we're going to get the same business-like approach from the Buckeyes. Let's also keep in mind, this is a program. None of these players have won a Big Ten title. This is not like old hat for Ohio State. We might feel like that because we've seen Ohio State of recent vintage, but this program hasn't won a Big Ten title since 2020. Wow. They're going to want to go out there and put their best foot forward. There's also more on the line when you think about the Heisman Trophy. Julian Sain's going to have to play well in order to win the game, in order to win the Heisman Trophy. So I still think that there's a lot on the line. The number 1 seed overall in the playoff is going to be beneficial. You'd rather play the number 4 team in the country in the semifinal than the number 2 or 3 team in the semifinal. So all of those things I think will be incentive for them to go put their best foot forward.
Okay, let's get to Kiffin. Listen, I've said don't marry the rock star and be shocked when he says, I got to go on tour for a couple of months.
Yeah.
Ole Miss would have signed up for where they're at today 5 years ago.
Sure.
Hey, you'll number 1 offense in the country, 11 wins, but he's going to burn you on the way out. Ole Miss would have signed up for that. So I don't have, when you go into business or you go into a relationship, as long as you get full disclosure, and there was on Lane Kiffin, I don't have a lot of sympathy for Ole Miss. They benefited just like everybody that hires Lane does. Your offense gets better. You get talked about. There's controversy and social media. I mean, I guess the whole thing doesn't bother me as much as it probably bothers everybody else. Does it bother you?
I just, everything that you said is correct. Nothing you said is wrong there. Yeah, I mean, he's got the 5 messiest exits in maybe football history. I mean, think about it. Al Davis with the overhead projector. You got the Tennessee debacle. He was left on the tarmac at USC. Saban told him to kick rocks before the national championship game, and now here at Ole Miss. So everything that you're saying, yes, if you're Ole Miss, again, Ole Miss, the program, the administration, I'm sure that this is kind of like, maybe this was always in the cards, or certainly we could expect this. But I think of it not from the Ole Miss perspective, and I think of it from the player's perspective. If you're one of those players and you're sitting in the meetings in August and early September, and they're talking about team first and committing and let's go achieve something and here are our team goals. Well, he just left that team and they are going to feel spurred. And trust me, like you're seeing articles out there where some of these players are pushing back on this narrative that Lane, wanted to coach and they wanted him to coach. And they're like, no, we feel pretty betrayed by Lane Kiffin, and rightly so. Listen, I don't begrudge this man his movement, and he's going to go, and he thought LSU was going to be a better opportunity for he and his family. More power to him. But that doesn't mean that there are not consequences to those decisions. And he did leave a team high and dry, and he left those players high and dry. That's going to hurt his credibility moving forward. And he also went to a place that, let's face it, is not as sound foundationally. They might have more resources, but it's certainly a lot more crazy at LSU. It's like, listen, you can go with a 6 to prom, and that 6 is going to be committed to you. Yeah. You take the 9, she might be crazy.
All right. That's a good way to put it. Okay. You and I did not like Penn State They did not like, you and I didn't like Penn State abruptly canning James Franklin. Well, now what's happened is the power brokers who run this sport, the agents, are freezing out Penn State. And they have like the recruiting class. I'm surprised they haven't called me. They're not recruiting anybody. Montana is going to have a better recruiting class today than Penn State. So what do you think happens? It's a good job. It's a good job, but it unfortunately for them, and I know the people involved, it has been mismanaged. I think that they had a plan when they fired James Franklin, and I think that plan involved Curt Cignetti. And Curt Cignetti was like, nope, that ain't my bag. And once that happened, then they were behind the 8 ball, and now they've gotten passed up by these other programs. So I think, here's the thing. I think that Penn State went after Kalani Sitake pretty hard, and Crumble Cookie came in and said, our cookies are delicious and they're making a lot of money, and no. And if you don't know that, the Crumble Cookie guy is a BYU guy, and he came in with a lot of it. It's a big meme, and it's fantastic. So now I think that there's probably a couple of guys that they're still in talks with and trying to get. I think Brian Daboll is still in play. I think Jeff Brom at Louisville is still in play. And the fact that it hasn't happened yet, and today, by the way, is National Signing Day, early signing day. Recruits can sign to your school today. And Penn State doesn't have a coach, which is wild. It speaks to the possible mismanagement of what's gone on, or at least it's going off the rails. And they don't have a coach, which also leads me to believe that something is up their sleeve. Colin, I think that they are targeting a coach that is still playing this week. And if you just go process of elimination, this is not information that I've heard from anybody. If process of elimination, you think, well, Kirby's not going anywhere. Sitake told him no. Joey McGuire's not going anywhere. Both guys in the American at Tulane and North Texas, Summerall and Eric Morris, they already have a place to go. Is it Tony Elliott at Virginia? Possibly. Manny Diaz at Duke? Possibly. Or is it Kalen DeBoer at Alabama? I think that they might be going after a guy that is coaching this week, which is why it's bleeding into the signing day. Kalen DeBoer, by the way, is a Midwest guy, isn't he? Got his start in South Dakota. How about that? Again, I haven't, no one's told me that officially, but if you just play that out, like, why do you not have a coach yet? He's got to still be coaching. That's pretty good closer right there. You just went Mariano Rivera on us. That was a pretty good close right there. Cutter in on the hands. Just okay, well, I'm going to enjoy the games. You have Indiana, Ohio State. I like Ohio State. Man, you're getting good games. Love it. Did you get a job promotion here at the company? They're giving you good games now. No. They said that I've been doing a good job on these hits. So this is it's reward for doing a good job here. Joel Klatt, good seeing you, buddy. See you, brother. That's interesting. I think Kalen DeBoer is unbelievable. I really do. I think Bama's, everybody's banging on. He's not coaching the Saban Bama teams. You understand Saban left Bama, right? You think it's because of age, but you watch Saban on TV, he's still funny as ever. Energy's unbelievable. Why'd Saban get out? I said this about 4 years ago. He played Sark when the NIL started about 4 years ago, whatever it was. He played Sark, and Sark had all that Texas money. And Saban's no dummy. Remember, he started complaining publicly. He looked at A&M and the Longhorns. That's Texas money. I mean, Texas is the Bentley. Alabama money is a glove compartment in a Kia. You're talking Texas money. Saban played Texas and went, I got no interest going toe-to-toe with the Aggies and the Longhorns, bags of money. So Saban's like exit stage right. Kalen DeBoer takes it. Everybody's like, well, he's not as good. He doesn't have the players. When you watch Bama play Georgia this weekend, Georgia's got more good players. If Ohio State played Bama, Ohio State's got much better players. I think Texas has better players. So, and I think Greg Byrne, the AD, hired the right guy. But, it's really unfair to say, well, this guy's an unbelievable coach. I just root for great coaching. That guy's a great coach. Oh, here we go. It'll be a rambunctious Wednesday show. We are live in Chicago. It's the Herd. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, Joel Klatt in 1 hour to try to unravel the 2025 latest edition of the college football playoff, the 12-team playoff. Now, again, you have an ACC championship game, an SEC championship game, a Big 12 championship game to be played. But I just want to talk about this for a second. It's so confusing. March Madness has 68 teams. Easier to explain than this. I can explain over the next 5 minutes the blockchain easier than I can the college football playoff. Miami is 10-2, has beaten Notre Dame head-to-head, and they're not in the ACC title game. You know who is? 7-5 Duke. And if Duke wins the ACC title game over Virginia, it blows up the ACC and nobody gets in from the conference. How do you make a conference championship game? And if you win it, a heroic 7-5 teams in the ACC championship, 10-2 Miami's not. And if Duke wins, nobody gets in from the ACC. Basically, what we learned yesterday, the committee said, yeah, I know, Miami, that you beat Notre Dame. And I know that you're 10-2 and have impressive wins. You're not in. And hammering Pitt in cold weather up north, that didn't impress us either. Okay, this is a perfect time to go back to my 10 to 20 year rant on the ridiculousness of college football. $8 billion industry, no centralized figure, no CEO, no Dana White is ridiculous. And whenever anybody says college football is better than the NFL, no, it's not. You can't have a great movie with a bad ending. You can't have a great movie with a bad ending. Once again, we're left with this nebulous cloud trying to decipher what matters. I thought scheduling big, tough road games matters. Yeah, Texas did. See ya. I thought winning big games mattered. Well, Texas beat Oklahoma. That was a pretty big game. Texas has 3 wins. Beat Texas A&M. Beat Vandy. No, that doesn't matter because they lost at Ohio State. I thought bad losses punished you. Well, last year, Notre Dame made the Natty. They lost to Northern Illinois at home. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. Ask yourself, have you ever watched the NFL playoffs and said, I like it, but I can't quite figure it out? I mean, occasionally in the NFL, you'll have like a team with a losing record have a home playoff game, but we all know why. We don't have to like it, but we know why, because they won a division. And they're playing a team that was a wild card team with a better record. That happens occasionally. But the simplest way to explain what happened last night, and again, we still have championship games to be played. The simplest way to explain last night is Notre Dame is in, and Miami and Texas are out. And Miami has an impressive win. Texas has several. But I guess Notre Dame doesn't have a really, really bad loss. So Texas and Miami have, Texas has multiple big wins, but that Florida loss, that's the capper. And Notre Dame doesn't really have a great win. And you could say USC, but USC has not played well the last 2 years in the Big Ten on road cold weather games. They just haven't. So it's funny. The last 30 years in college football, first we had the media select who played for the Natty. Then it was the computers. And now we're down to an arbitrary committee where it's math meets selective feelings. Again, whenever you argue college football is better than the pros, what you're saying is NFL, great beginning, great middle, great end, is not as good as a movie with an atrocious ending. Even the Lane Kiffin saga, they can't even get their calendar right. And I love college football. So I'm not going to hyperventilate too much on the rankings. I'd put Miami in. I think Texas deserves a shot. I don't have a problem with Notre Dame being in. But it is remarkable that Duke at 7-5 is in the ACC championship game. And if they win, they not only don't get in, nobody in the conference does. That is absolutely ridiculous. That's why Urban Meyer came on my show earlier this week and said, get rid of the committee.
I think the committee's got to go away. You have Chris Felica, you got the Bear, you got Mark Ingram, you got Matt Leinart, Brady Quinn, Urban Meyer. There's a bunch of national titles, Heisman's, a bunch of football guys. That's what they do. I mean, we're damn near in fistfights in that green room, getting ready to go on Big Noon because everybody's got, and we can't agree. So how in the world our athletic directors, conference committee, how are they coming up with who's going to be in the playoffs? So I'm a big believer in the 4-4-2-2-1-1 that was presented earlier about the committee goes away, the conferences take care of it.
I agree. The ACC is this weird, convoluted Ponzi scheme that I'm almost rooting now for Duke to beat Virginia, so nobody gets in from the ACC. We know Miami should. And then everybody has to sit down and go, this is ridiculous. I mean, it's been ridiculous forever. It used to be computers. Now it's math and selective feelings. Take a deep breath. We still have championship games coming up. Maybe it'll get better. I like Ohio State by 10 points, the 2 touchdowns. Let me stay on college football for a second. So the college football playoff, it's not finished, the 12 teams yet. So we've got multiple conference championships. But I think the thing most troubling, I'll talk to Joel Klatt about this, is the messages sent. So, like, Miami does not get in, but Miami's got, like, a quality win over Notre Dame. And Miami, you'd say, has a bad loss to Louisville. Yes, bad loss. But the SMU loss is not a terrible loss. SMU made the playoff last year. SMU was 8-4 this year. SMU beat Miami and Clemson this year. SMU's a fine football program. It's not great. It's pretty solid, 8-4, and it was a close game, 26-20. Miami is getting punished for a really bad loss to Louisville. Okay, Notre Dame doesn't have a bad loss. They've got losses to Miami and Texas A&M, but what's their quality win? To 16th ranked USC, but it was at home. That matters. USC is 2 different programs. There's the in LA Trojans, right? Like in LA, hammered Michigan, and then there's the on the road Trojans who last year lost to Maryland, could struggle with Rutgers and kind of get blown out a lot on the road in the Big Ten. Get handled. So what's the messaging? Like Texas has multiple excellent wins. Throttled Texas A&M, throttled Vandy, throttled Oklahoma. And they lost 3 road games. The closest loss to Ohio State. Losing to Georgia is a game they don't match up well with. Yeah, Florida's an ugly loss. So what the messaging to me says is you can't have a really, really bad loss. But Notre Dame last year lost at home to Northern Illinois. That's an atrocious loss. Made it in and made it to the Natty. So I just think, you know, there was a coach named Mike Leach. He was a very funny guy. He was a very unique, clever guy. And he has passed away. But before he did, when he found out college football, you know, was going to go to this playoff and it was going to be selected by a committee, and Mike Leach understood what was going to happen down the road.
We're so smart. Wouldn't all the other sports say, I know what, let's have a committee? You know, because why not? Because, you know, we're American. We love committees. Let's get us a committee. Well, who should be on the committee? Well, I don't know. This guy's a good guy. Let's have him on the committee. I mean, it'd be fun. We'd go to that resort. We could talk. We could hang out at dinner. And then we'll decide which 4 teams should go. Because you know why? We don't need to solve this on the field. Because we're the ones that know.
And that's the problem with committees. There's a lot of cronyism. I mean, you can't have relationships with people for 20 years and not favor them, right? Like, that's just not the way the world works. So I think the messaging bothers me. I am not anti or pro Miami or Notre Dame, but if you both have 2 losses, at least Miami is a complete ACC member. You know, Notre Dame is still like, all right, we'll kind of play in the ACC, but we want to do our own thing. I mean, couldn't I argue if Notre Dame and Miami are tied and Miami won head-to-head, that because you're a full member, that's an advantage? You have to play more games that you don't control. Notre Dame controls a bigger percentage of their schedule. Miami doesn't. They're a conference member. You get stuck some years with tough schedules. I mean, let's face it. If Miami plays SMU at home instead of the road, they probably win that game and they're in. So, and I don't think head-to-head is the only thing, but I said yesterday, Miami's got the better defense. Miami's got the better passing game. They have 4 common opponents. Miami beat 3 worse. So, I mean, I feel bad for Miami. I really do. Because I like the program. I like the spirit. It's a flashy program. Not a lot of flashy college football programs. Miami, USC are kind of flashy. It's not anti-Notre Dame. I said if they played today, I'd probably take Notre Dame. But I don't think you should allow people in based on what Colin thinks would happen if they played again, right? That's not the right way to do it.